Thank you for being on the show. You had some things that you wanted to talk about today, and I believe one of them I'm trying to get back to my thing. One of them was,
The
here it
Science
is.
Journal front page is what I hope I might lead with.
Yeah, from the Science Journal, right?
Yeah, Ken, those of us who live with animals know that they are intelligent, they're fun, they're sensitive, their emotions are not all that different from ours. And
Hmm.
finally, science is catching up and has decided to start studying not just dogs, which is usually considered to be the safest place to for us to look, but they're actually looking at the intelligence and emotional lives of farm animals, and
Hmm.
science has that on the current front page. And I was just so pleased to see that. And I read the article a couple of days ago, and it talks about again how much like us they are, how they're exactly like our dogs and cats, how they can look at our faces and distinguish various emotions that we're feeling, how they identify each other, how some cows, of course, have certain friends in the herd who they like to hang around with, and others they don't like to hang
Oh,
around
that's
with.
funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Is it
It's
a
funny, like
is it
I'm
a
going to
surprise though?
anybody who
Because
thinks they're, you go, and then I'll
I was
go.
just gonna say, is it a surprise? Because have you seen the videos of people that raise these animals, or that people, kids especially, that have raised them from calves from the 4-H club or whatever, and you see them with these bonds with these animals. In some cases, inviting them into their houses to sleep with them or cuddling with them, and so it isn't far off to think that they could be as lovely as the other house pets that people have, the other animals in our lives.
Of course they
Yeah.
are. And, anybody who's taken a dog to the dog park has seen their dog charge off to meet their best friend
Hmm.
immediately when that best friend comes in. So, yes, it's the same with cows and with chickens in their flocks. They have their friends who they hang with and that sort of thing. So it's just so lovely that science, as I said, is catching up with what so many of us already know. And folks can check that article out. The nice thing is it's not behind a paywall. They can just go to science and have a look at that if they're interested. And I loved the timing of it coming out, just as on Saturday, the Los Angeles Times, and actually I just sent this off to Tony. I don't know if he's got it yet, and I hope he should just like come on and tell me off when I send him something too late to include. But whether or not he can show it to us, I sent him an email with a front page story from the Los Angeles Times on Monday, which was not about animal emotion. It was about the destruction of the environment that comes from dairy farm pollution. And it's been well known, at least for a few years now, we've been acknowledging how bad cows are because of the methane that they emit in various ways. And methane warms the atmosphere at a much greater rate than carbon dioxide does. So now, what of course, those of us in the animal community who would rather animals were not used as devices of commerce, that's here we go. We see the cows on the front page. And what this article is about is that instead of saying, okay, let's stop raising cows by the millions for human consumption or so that we can drink their milk, what California decided to do was to try and capture the methane emitted by cows, and that being the solution to the warming issue. Well, what this article that I'm so pleased that the Los Angeles Times put on the front page tells us is that though they might be capturing the methane, they're not capturing all the other extremely negative stuff that comes from cows in the way of pollution. So these farms are still spewing disgusting, filthy particle-filled air all over their neighborhoods. And that's why that front page article says methane strategy stinks, critics say. And the reason I was pleased to see this come out the same week as the Science Journal front page on farm animal cognition is that I think there's a danger for animal advocates when, in order to persuade people to eat less animal products, or we go with the environmental or the health arguments, which I do believe that we can use those, but if we make them the main focus of our argument, there's this danger that, well, people will try and find a workaround. And here's an example of, well, the dairy industry emits horrible amounts of methane. Well, let's just try and capture the methane while not interfering with the dairy industry. The problem with that, besides, as the Los Angeles Times reports here, is that it doesn't get rid of all the problems of the dairy industry as they pertain to humans. It certainly doesn't deal with the problem of the dairy industry as it pertains to cows. And though most of us, a lot of us grew up with images of happy cows on happy farms, what we're seeing in that photo is more what the dairy industry looks like these days, except that those cows are outdoors, and that's unusual. Usually these days cows are kept strictly indoors, and that's the dairy cows. It's sometimes when we see cows grazing on the hillsides, it's the beef industry cows with their little newborn babies. Mm-hmm. And of course, regardless of the size of the farm, I think it's something that people need to start thinking about is whether we really have the right to take babies away from their mothers so that we can drink their milk. And again, I just ask people to think about it, not to, necessarily take my thinking on that. But that's the animal rights argument, is that cows are not making milk for us. They're making it for their babies. And in order for us to drink it, we have to be constantly impregnating those cows and then taking their babies away from them. And Temple Grandin, who's no animal rights activist, is known to have said that the worst sound she's ever heard is a mother cow bellowing for her baby. So sad. The veal crates, and that bellowing can go on for days. So that's why I'm a big proponent of plant-based milks, and I hope folks will try them whether or not they decide they want to dump dairy permanently or not. So this
wouldn't affect that, but when you talk about methane and trying to reduce methane for the environment, here in the North Bay, and I think even further north, and also in San Diego with Scripps Institute, there have been 2 or 3 studies where they've taken special seaweed and incorporated that into the diet of cows on farms, and it has dramatically reduced the amount of methane they produce. Now, that goes against or doesn't go with your thought of just reducing the cows we produce for dairy or for meat, which I understand, but I just thought it was an interesting way when you talk about, getting rid of methane, how this might be something that we could look toward.
It might help reduce the methane. What this article makes clear is that even if you get rid of the methane, you've still got all the other problems that come with the dairy industry, the filth of the air. And again, from the animal rights perspective, whether or not it's true that feeding these cows seaweed, which is not a natural thing for cows to be eating, might help reduce the methane, it doesn't change the fact that the dairy industry does, at its core root, mean taking babies away from their mothers so that we can drink their milk. I think some of us were raised thinking, oh, cows just produce milk, and there's extra milk, we can drink it. And a female cow doesn't produce milk without being pregnant any more than you or I do, Kim. It's just you have to make a cow pregnant before she produces milk, and that means there's a baby who heads off to the veal crate when he's born, unless it's a she and she goes into the dairy industry and has the same fate of her mother. So, what you're saying about seaweed and methane might be true. But, as an animal person, as I am, and Mark is, that's something that we actually want to avoid.
Right.
And the other thing I wanted to, there were a couple of other things I wanted to talk about. One is that Matthew Scully has a brand new book out. And Matthew Scully is an interesting person. He was a senior speechwriter for George W. Bush. And generally, animal advocacy has been thought of as more of a left-wing issue than a right-wing issue. But the lefties haven't really earned the applause they get there. In fact, the Biden administration has been particularly sad on animal issues. In fact, the Biden administration recently backed the pork industry against California voters who had voted to ban gestation crates. And Matthew Scully's latest book, he wrote the first one, Nights and Weekends, while he was in George W. Bush's White House. He was busy writing Dominion, The Power of Man, The Suffering of Animals, and The Call to Mercy. And anybody who has right-wing or very conservative, Catholic, whatever, family members who they would like to care more about animals, Matthew's work is the way to get them involved. And the first book was Dominion. And the second one is this new one, Fear Factories, that I hope Tony can show us the cover of. Matthew writes beautifully, as speechwriters do generally have a real gift with the pen, which Matthew certainly has. And the cover of that shows us what these animals that Science Journal is now telling us are intelligent and have cognition just like every other animals, what they experience on these factory farms. And here we have a photo of gestation crates, which is those sows, those female pigs, live their lives in those crates where they cannot even lie down with their limbs outstretched, cannot turn around. And the California voters voted recently to ban those crates in California, and that ban has just come into effect, despite the pork industry trying to fight California at the Supreme Court level and the Biden administration backing the pork industry on that. Mm-hmm. And I'm not for a moment saying, oh, Republicans are good on animal issues either. Both sides are bad. But Matthew Scully, who is a conservative because he's a devout Catholic, happens to be someone who's amazing on these issues. So I just thought I would share that. He has a new book out, which would be an incredible Christmas present for any conservative family members who you would like to awaken their care for animals.
Well, and you talk about that, but I've been watching this state of emergency in my county, Sonoma County, where they've had to destroy 250,000 chickens because of the fear of avian flu. And it's not the only place they've had to do that in America. There are other states that we're talking millions of animals that have to be destroyed because they don't want this avian flu to spread. And so, you look at this type of farming that's done, and I don't think it's good for, breeding disease as well.
Kim, first, I just want to thank you, bless you, for saying that they had to be destroyed rather than euthanized. You know how I feel about that word euthanized. And people have been saying these birds are euthanized. And it's like, no, they really, really want to live. Though actually with the avian flu situation, their death from avian flu would be pretty horrible. But not as bad as their death is because of the emergent situation where they have to kill millions of them. They've been allowing for a form of death, which is basically being baked alive. They cut off air into the facilities that the chickens live in, and they turn up heat. Yeah. And these birds can take 6 hours to die from no air, and lots of heat.
Oh my God, that's awful. Oh God.
And it's legal. And that's because, as Mark mentioned, I think it was last week on the show, the humane slaughter laws, the federal humane slaughter laws, which dictate how we can kill animals in this country, exempt birds, which are over 95% of animals who are killed for food in this country. So it's crazy. But I know Mark always likes to end on a happy note.
I know.
And you've again segued us so beautifully because you mentioned birds and the avian flu and them being killed on these factory farms. Well, there's a new movie coming out on December 15th on Netflix. It's the sequel to Chicken Run, which came out, I think it was in the year 2000, around then. And this is Chicken Run 2. It's called Chicken Run, The Dawn of the Nugget. And CBS Sunday did a special on it on Sunday morning, and they showed us clips from it, which I know we have an issue showing here. But I did send over a screenshot of my post about it because it had a quote from the director who, what happens apparently in this new Chicken Run is that instead of trying to break out of a farm, the our chicken friends are trying to break into a factory farm. And so it's a Chicken Impossible kind of movie. And they are trying to break.
Is it a movie? Is it a movie for kids, like an animated movie?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
and Tony, I hope you've got. I think you told me he has this screenshot which shows one of the little animated characters, and it also has a quote from the director. But yes, Chicken Run, the first one was animated, and so is this one. Is it for kids? Yes, it's a family movie. And just like Guardians of the Galaxy was a family movie, which I don't know if you saw it, Kim, and it's one of my favorite movies of the year, and it has a really strong anti-vivisection message. Basically, like my generation grew up with Bambi, and therefore don't really do a lot of deer hunting.
Yeah,
well,
it's true. I remember being devastated by that movie. Yeah,
absolutely. And you don't go deer hunting, do you?
No, well, that's not my bag. No. Mm-mm.
And Guardians of the Galaxy taught a lot of kids about the horrors of vivisection. And I think this new Chicken Run movie is going to get them to learn a bit about factory farming and where the nuggets come from. So I guess we're not showing a photo, but
that's all right.
Quote from the quote, we don't need it. The quote from the director is something to the tune of that we can educate people in a really fun kind of manner. And that's what these, here we go.
Yeah.
And I might have to put on my glasses to read that quote, or can you read it, Kim?
It's really, really small, but yeah, I don't think I can read it. It's just too small.
You know, I'm going to put on I've got a pair of pink glasses.
And I don't usually have vision problems, but yeah. Oh, okay. Maybe. I can read it. It says the animation can tackle really important, interesting subjects in really important, interesting, funny, entertaining ways. Chicken Impossible. Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to that movie, and I wanted to let folks know that was coming out December 15th on Netflix.
Karen, Dawn, yay. Thank you for being here. I so appreciate all the information you brought us today.
It's always so good to see you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak for animals that the Mark Thompson Show gives us.
Karen with DawnWatch. You can sign up for her newsletter, DawnWatch. Just search for that. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next Monday.
Thank you, Kim.
Bye, Karen.
Bye. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.